Welcome to Anews. I'm Umar Taslim and you're watching Turkey's Diplomacy. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization has just wrapped up its largest summit in Tianjin with leaders from China, Russia, India, and more. In today's episode, we'll examine the SCO's effectiveness in security, economic cooperation, and counterterrorism, as well as the challenges it faces amid regional rivalries. We'll also cover the ongoing crisis in Gaza, where the death toll has surpassed 64,000 and hundreds of thousands are being displaced. Joining me to discuss these pressing issues are Marvin Lee from the Geoshock think tank in Hong Kong and Dr. Abdenour Toumi from the French capital.
Well, I think the parade was absolutely impressive. China is a peace-loving country, but of course, if something bad happens, China is showing that we are prepared. The Chinese resistance was absolutely crucial to win the World War II.
Он не просто большой и мощный, но это аппарат по содержанию и по качеству представленной техники очень сильный. И действительно можно было и нужно было смотреть, потому что здесь мы увидим силу, мощь самой техники, силу, мощь самого китайской армии и китайского народа. И, конечно, все вот эти моменты, связанные и с деятельностью руководителя Китайской Народной Республики, с его деятельностью, деятельностью Коммунистической партии.
We have to look to history, and it gives us a good insight on where we're going in the future. And when we know, when we think of things, especially on the commemoration of World Anti-Fascist Day, and this idea of how do we secure ourselves. And so we're seeing a strong modern China rise up. And, this is an exciting moment, not just for China, but for the world, if we can find ways to work together.
President Xi Jinping said that only when all countries and nations treat each other as equals, coexist in peace, and support each other, can we uphold common security. The Chinese development itself, an approach to both domestic and foreign policy, is the philosophy of a win-win situation.
A couple of months ago, I visited Nanjing. The memorial hall actually left me with a lot of deep impressions. For the whole process, we see how war has been tearing apart Nanjing, and also the kind of atrocities that's been happening to the populations of Nanjing at that time. President Xi Jinping's message of peace can only be achieved through common development. This message of peace, peaceful development, and peaceful modernization is very important.
Welcome back to the program. Joining me for the first half of today's episode is political analyst Marvin Lee from the Geoshock think tank in Hong Kong. Marvin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me again.
Marvin, last week we saw how the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit took the world by storm. There were so many agreements, there were so many deals. Leaders have been talking about security, economic cooperation, counterterrorism as well. How effective do you think that the organization is in achieving these outcomes?
Thanks for having this question. The effectiveness of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization cannot be judged by only short-term agreements, but rather by the long-term strategic architecture it shapes from my perspective. And let me give you 3 points here. First, on the military and security level, SCO joint exercises such as peace mission have showcased China's J-20 fighter jets, EF-series missiles, drones, and information-based joint operations. These are not only demonstrations of technology, but also signals that China and its national partners are building real combat readiness, especially with Pakistan in this level. And second, the SCO is deeply aligned with the Belt and Road Initiative. China believes that safety must come before business, A few years ago, Chinese engineers were killed and murdered in Pakistan while working on infrastructure projects. And this strategy reinforced the lesson that the roads must be built, but only when safety is secure first. And SCO cooperation in counterterrorism, in the intelligence sharing, and cross-border security is precisely what makes projects like China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, China Central Asian Railways, and China-Russian gas pipelines more sustainable in the long future. And the final point is the informal conversation between President Xi Jinping, President Putin, and Modi of India during the SCO summit sent a subtle but very powerful message to Washington and even to Donald Trump as well. A flexible China is not that isolated, and India is not entirely in Americans' pocket. And by maintaining flexible diplomacy with India and Russia, Beijing can reduce friction with its neighbor countries and with concentrate resources on more urgent strategic matters, such as the unification of Taiwan in the future and the South China Sea. And so, let me draw a conclusion here. The SCO has drawn a very strong message here to the United States of America. So there will be a very new global new order in the future. So that if you want to isolate your partner, so China welcomes all together, work together, and earn money together based on the win-win collaborations.
Marvin, I'm glad you're with me in the program today because I have some interesting things to talk about. Next question, something that's been bothering everyone, especially the United States. When the summit happened and then China also held that military parade in Beijing, we saw that the United States was not happy. Why did China get such a reaction from the United States, and especially Donald Trump, who has mentioned many things, and considering, he also held a summit with Putin in Alaska, and then he joined Xi Jinping in Beijing. So how is the United States looking at the summit?
Honestly, from my perspective, the American was a bit arrogant. And they believe that China is still like in 1900 and we live on top of the tree, right? But honestly, China is in 2025 right now. And everything we are so advanced right now. If you go to Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, or again, so everything is very advanced. 5G communication, high-speed railway everywhere. If you compare this to the to USA, compared to the railway system, right? Compared to the metro system in New York, so you can compare which one is much better, right? I don't need to give a clear answer here. So to understand Donald Trump's reaction, we must look at both at America's strategic perspective and Donald Trump's personal psychology as a businessman. So from the American perspective, China has become a competitor unlike any the U.S. has ever faced, a comprehensive challenger across all domains. So let me give you a mini history lecture here. So back like 40 years ago, the Soviet Union once had a military strength, but lacked cultural appeal. Japan and Germany had economic power, but limited military technology. But China, by contrast, combines hard power, soft power, and institutional appeals. For example, the hard power, the J-20 fighters, the unmanned warfare, the aircraft carrier, the F-61 intercontinental missiles that can reach globally everywhere in the world. So if you want to fight, we are ready. If you want to make peace, so we can make peace as well. And the soft power, and you can see there are lots of soft power in China, like the movies, pop songs, and even toys, especially pop mart, everywhere in Europe, everywhere in USA, and then TikTok as well. And then the third point is the China visions of a community of shared future for mankind in sharp contrast with American zero-sum mindset. This is the first time Washington faced a rival with strong cultural, economic, and military capacity simultaneously. The combination of the SCO summit and the World War II parade represent both hard power and narrative power, naturally unsettling for the U.S. And there is a very subtle but powerful message from the Chinese government and the Chinese perspective, and the Chinese people as well. The Chinese civilization has always been the top of the world. But because of the century of humiliation from 1842 until 1949, we have learned a very painful lessons. So we have to learn one important message here: peace through strength. If you can't make peace, if you can't make peace without how to fight, you will lose. So this is what's happening right now in the Middle East.
Marvin, isn't that exactly what China is doing with Europe? Because let's take a look at, the last 10 years or 15 years. We've seen how European countries in the Middle East have, started enhancing their ties with China. Before, we were seeing Asian countries were dependent on Europe, and Europe was also dependent on other countries apart from China. Let's say India, Pakistan for their goods, for their raw materials. When you talk about Pakistan, there's textile. When you talk about India, there's food, there's spices. And now, after 10 years, we're seeing that the Europeans and countries in the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they are enhancing their ties with China. So what is the reason behind that? You've mentioned so many things. Technology, there are big business leaders, companies like Alibaba. But what other reasons have, pressured, not just pressured, but, enhanced their ability of European countries to, side with the Chinese?
This is a very, very good question. Instead of talking each country's here, let me give you a very good example. That is Saudi Arabia. And also this is my PhD topic, between the diplomacy between Saudi Arabia and China. Saudi Arabia is good at playing a game called hedging diplomacy, be friends with the American, and also have a closing tie with Chinese as well. I have been to Riyadh and Dammam like 2 months ago, and one thing that made me very surprised is that the international airport, they have 3 languages: Arabic, English, and Chinese, simplified Chinese. And basically, you don't need to speak English at the region, because most of them can speak very good Chinese at the very most infrastructures. But why? So why do they back to China? Because we have full strength to do business with them. We never ask very difficult questions here. So I have a very good friends from Saudi Arabia and Central Asia, from Kazakhstan. And they said, when we do business with the Chinese people, the Chinese people ask 3 questions: how much, how many, and when. Sign the contract and get the payment, and then we leave. But if you do business with the American, they will ask you lots of questions, lots of difficult questions. Want to understand, like, where did your grandfather comes from? It is a joke from them. So for Saudi Arabia, they have been also buying lots of military equipment from China as well, and closing ties with China economically. For example, the regional headquarters of Alibaba Cloud is in the KAF, King Abdullah Financial District in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So why it is in Riyadh, not in Dubai, not in Abu Dhabi or Doha, right? Because both countries can see the strengths and power, the potential altogether. So that's why Saudi Arabia would like to work with China in order to achieve the Saudi Vision 2030. And the EU countries, and from the service level, they have to take a arm's length, keep a distance with China. But from the bottom of their heart, they would like to work with China. Let me give you a recent example. So the pork, the meat, okay, the milk, most of them have been sold to China, but not to USA. Why? Because of the tariff. We welcome all together to work with us, but we never tolerate. We have zero tolerance to any kind of bullying. So that's why China has offered an alternative solution to the rest of the world. We welcome you to work together, and we sit together, and we talk together, but we never conquer or invade other foreign countries. If you look at our Chinese history, we never conquer the foreign powers. We only show our strengths, want you to work with us, we as a center of the globe.
Marvin, another leadership skill that China has shown the entire world is, how you mentioned peace through strength. Now, Marvin, how is China looking at some members in the SCO? For example, Pakistan and India. And it's not just the SCO, it's for the benefit of the entire region as well. How is China diffusing tensions between these rivals?
This is also a very good question here. So from the Chinese perspective, we believe SCO, Belt and Road Initiative, or sort of international organization or meeting as a chess, a gold chess, the Chinese chess. So what does it mean? We encircle the enemy bit by bit, gradually. But the American, they are playing international, the Western chess game, to want to dominate the entire chessboard within a very short period of time. So who will win in the long term? So like, I don't need to give a clear answer here, right? Of course, it is China. And even India and China, they used to have a very bad relations because of the border clash and loss of ideological approach. And there used to be a war in 1962, but they chose to work together because they have a common opponent here. And that is President Donald Trump of the United States of America. China worked with India to reduce the tension. So China has more legal energy, to focus on South China Sea and the more internal economy, the economic transformation to achieve Made in China 2025, and to reduce all the tensions along the border. So that's why SCO is really important for China. And even today and yesterday, and President Xi Jinping also joined the BRICS, online BRICS summit, launched by Brazil. So that's why we work together and just to reduce the reliance of the USA.
Marvin, I want to come to Russia. Do you think that Russia and India are increasingly dependent on China? Because we all know, and it's a fact, that China is a superpower. So do you think that both of these countries are increasingly dependent on the Chinese?
As I've mentioned before, the Chinese government and the Chinese people are really welcome to work with all partners all around the world, especially Russia and India. We believe that we have mutual national interests to work with together, just to look for some big things, for example, economic collaborations, rather than any ideological approach. Historically, Russia and India were not sharing closer ties with China, like in our history. But it is a history, so we look at the future. We are future-oriented, unlike the USA. So USA, they always look about the history, and you are it's very unfair for them. They're playing this narrative, but we don't really care, because like the Chinese civilization, what does Chinese culture means? We have a very big heart to accommodate every mankind of the world, because we believe that everyone is equal. We work together, no matter you are from a big country or small country. You can see the TV program here that you are sharing with the red carpet to welcome you, no matter how far you come from. So this is our Chinese proverb 2,000 years ago. We sit together, eat together at a round table. It means harmony. We believe in harmony. Instead of we want you to rely on us. We don't believe this.
Marvin, there's one country that China has been having tensions with, and that's Japan. There have been historical issues as well. But of course, as we move towards a new globalized age, these problems are also, being eliminated. Now, Japan's Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, has resigned. How are you looking at those events? Because there were many, he was being criticized for many things, failing to deliver salaries, for the economic problems, and then the inflation as well. How are you looking at these recent developments, Marvin?
Honestly, first of all, from the Chinese perspective, we have no interest to deal with the internal politics of Japan. But one thing that we really care is about Japan has never formally apologized what they have done during World War II. They killed and murdered 14 million Chinese people, and even murdered 300 people in Tianjin. So this really we care about. So if the future Prime Minister of Japan would like to apologize and work with China, we welcome them to do so.
Marvin, thanks for that analysis. It was a pleasure to have you on the program once again.
Thank you.
Hamas and Israel are considering negotiations to end the ongoing conflict in Gaza, contingent on the implementation of a ceasefire that would pave the way for discussions over hostages and a potential withdrawal of forces.
As another high-rise building was bombed to rubble in Gaza City on Monday, Israel said it would step up airstrikes on Gaza in a, quote, mighty hurricane. It says it is a last warning to Hamas that it will destroy the enclave unless fighters agreed to free all hostages and surrender. Israeli military bombed a 12-floor block in the middle of Gaza City, where dozens of displaced families had been housed. Those living inside and in tents in the surrounding area were given 3 hours' notice to leave. In a statement, the military said Hamas fighters have been operating near the building. Monday's death toll has climbed to at least 40. Palestinians bid farewell to loved ones, including children killed in Israeli attacks. Where do we go? This woman asks. We don't have money to move, nor do we have money to get a tent. What is the fault of all these children to die? Israel launched a major assault last month on Gaza City, where hundreds of thousands of residents are living in ruins. Hamas said it was studying the latest US ceasefire proposal that President Donald Trump said was the group's last chance. A senior Israeli official says the latest proposal calls for Hamas to return all 48 remaining living and dead hostages on the first day of a ceasefire, during which negotiations would be held to end the war. Hamas has long said it intends to hold on to some hostages until negotiations are complete. It said it was committed to releasing them all with a clear announcement of an end to the war and the withdrawal of Israeli forces.
A Houthi drone strike hit Israel's Ramon airport on Sunday, wounding one and briefly halting flights amid escalating attacks.
A drone fired by the Houthi militants in Yemen breached Israel's multi-layered air defenses on Sunday and slammed into the country's southern airport, the Israeli military said, briefly shutting down commercial airspace and diverting flights over southern Israel. One of several Houthi drones launched from Yemen slipped through Israel's defense system and crashed into the passenger terminal at the Ramon International Airport near the resort city of Eilat, the Israeli Airports Authority said, blowing out glass windows, sending smoke plumes billowing and lightly wounding one person. The damage to Ramon Airport appeared limited, and within a couple of hours it reopened as normal flights resumed. The Houthis claimed responsibility for the strike. The attack comes days after Israeli strikes on Yemen's rebel-held capital of Sana'a killed the Houthi prime minister and other officials in his cabinet in a major escalation of the nearly two-year-old conflict between Israel and the Iran-backed group in Yemen. After Israel's targeted killing of Houthi Prime Minister Ahmed al-Rahawi last Thursday, the group vowed to escalate their attacks targeting Israel and merchant ships navigating the vital trade route through the Red Sea off Yemen. The Houthis said that Sunday's attack on Ramon Airport, some 19 kilometers from Eilat on Israel's southern tip, successfully achieved its objectives. Houthi military spokesperson Brig. General Yahya Sari said the group had fired 8 drones at Israel. He warned that airports in Israel are unsafe and will be continuously targeted.
نفذ سلاح الجو المسير في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية واسعة بعدد من الطائرات المسيرة استهدفت أهدافا عديدة في مناطق النجب وأم الرشراش وعسقلان وأسدود ويافا، وقد توزعت على النحو التالي: طائرة مسيرة على مطار رامون وقد أصابت المطار بشكل مباشر بفضل الله وتسببت في إيقاف المطار ووقف حركة الملاحة فيه.
The Israeli military said on Sunday that it had intercepted 3 Houthi attack drones near Israel's border with Egypt, but was investigating why it failed to identify the 4th drone that hit Ramon Airport as a hostile aircraft. The Houthis have stepped up their aerial attacks on Israel in recent months, including by deploying warheads with cluster munitions that scatter smaller bomblets over a large area and evade Israeli air defenses.
Welcome back to the program. Joining us now from the French capital is political analyst Dr. Abdunnoor Toumi. Dr. Toumi, welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the program.
Dr. Toumi, let's start with the statement that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made yesterday, warning Palestinians to leave Gaza City. And, considering the fact that there are no safe zones, what are the Palestinians going to do from this point onwards? And how are you analyzing this genocidal government's discourse on the complete occupation of the Gaza Strip?
Actually, this messianic, racist government continues on his atrocities and those war crimes, and of course, enhancing the narrative of the Zionists it continues in their quote-unquote self-defense, while is obliterating entire Gaza Strip and pushing the Palestinians to leave their lands. And also this is after all these barbaric destruction and operating policies and scorching policy that has been going on for 2 years now, with the silence of the Western countries and some leaders in the region. And this arrogant statement from the Israeli leaders is the result of the impunity. And after destroying all not only the lands and the heritage of anything stands for Palestine and Palestinian people, now is destroying the anything deals with urban, like landmark and so on, like those towers who are now the main target or the objective of to again lay down and erase, as I said, everything stands for Palestine and Palestinian people, in which this is the strategic objective for the ethnic cleansing and forced exile for the Palestinians to leave Gaza and establish these Zionist objectives, strategic objectives for their, again, to erase anything stands for Palestine. So this is not new, but the question where the Palestinians now go, they're not going anywhere, and this is a part of these craziness that is driving the Israelis and even the President Trump administration now, and that they are in they don't know what they do. They don't have any strategy, even in terms of crisis management, they don't know what they do because they don't have any plans. They have been talking about the day after, but there is no day after. Because the ongoing day, they cannot manage it and they cannot handle it. Go in with fire and killing and committing more war crimes.
Dr. Toumi, Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip are not the only ones who are being forcibly displaced. If we look at the occupied West Bank, Palestinians are also being driven out of their homes by illegal settlers, and the Israeli government is pushing this agenda of illegal settlements. How are you looking at the developments there?
And this is an excellent point. And it's not about Gaza now. It has become clear. The whole point is about Palestine and about the Palestinian people. And this is, I mean, the alibi or the pretext of quote-unquote self-defense and going and destroy anything stands for Palestine and Palestinian people in Gaza. No, I mean, there is no Gaza. I mean, there is nothing left. Only the people, I mean, who are, again, resistant and showing their strong resilience, and they are saying, no, we're not going anywhere. So that, and so that, I mean, what's happening now in the West Bank, and there is no Hamas in the West Bank. I mean, and it's 80% of the land in the West Bank. It's already it's occupied, and now it has become clear. And when we saw these racist minister of finance minister, I mean, who is in charge of the settlers in the West Bank. I mean, I mean, every week he comes and appear with a new with a map and a new plan to push away or force the Palestinians to leave and go and send them again. I mean, whether in Jordan or to the desert. I mean, he doesn't care. I mean, as long as he has this full protection and unconditional support from the U.S. administration. And by the way, when you see statements are coming from a U.S. ambassador in Al-Quds al-Sharif, I mean, Mr. Hakibi, I mean, who is not acting as an ambassador. By the way, he acts like a civilian ruler of Al-Quds al-Sharif, and he is, again, he destroyed all the art of diplomacy and positioning himself as religious zealous. And again, I'm trying to just paraphrase a line what he said. I mean, when he portrayed this conflict, I mean, by the way, he doesn't have any knowledge, so that the main cabinet member of the President Donald Trump about the Israeli-Arab conflict that has 80 years of, conflict parameters and so on, and the ramifications on the region. I mean, back to the ambassador who said it's a battle of ages, and it's, I mean, like he put it, like good versus evil. So when he has this Talmudic vision, so what do we expect from one talks about negotiation and peace process and two-state solutions, and on the other hand, he doesn't, he ignores you. I mean, he doesn't recognize that there is on the other side that there is people who have been for for decades and there, and they are not they are pushing them to leave, and this is the dilemma for the entire question of this conflict.
Dr. Toomey, we've been talking about how countries in the Middle East have not done enough for the Gazans, for the Palestinian cause. Now, Saudi Arabia and France will resume a peace conference on Palestine at the UNGA, at the 80th session of the UNGA, which kicks off on the 22nd of September. Do you think that this will hold any value, considering that Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, has been banned and 80 other members of their delegation have not been given visas to enter the United States? Do you think this will hold any value?
Symbolically, yes. And this is what is driving the Israelis and the American administration, like making them angry to their, natural allies, like, for instance, France. But this is the question. Actually, it's an excellent question, because now this question is challenging the entire international community members, and notably the 4 UN Security Council permanent members, and even the rest of the countries who are UN members now. So we are in this scenario when it comes to the visa ban. I mean, it happened already with late Palestinian President Yasser Arafat in 1988, and then, I mean, the UN General Assembly did move to Geneva, and President Arafat at that time, the PLO leader, he did make a speech, and he extended his hand to the Israeli leader then, and for looking for peace and for the two-state solution. I mean, this time it could happen with the Palestinian Authority President Abbas, Mahmoud Abbas. I mean, he can make his speech from Geneva, but this is in the hand of the rest of the countries. And now, especially this time, I mean, unlike the 1988, I mean, today we are in a different international context, and we saw how last week the Shanghai Conference, I mean, did challenge the entire current world order, and we saw now the global South leaders, I mean, are having leverage and are challenging seriously the Pax Americana and the American militarization foreign policy doctrine. And now, I mean, they can have a say and challenge the Americans, and like they did in 1988 with with the PLO President Yasser Arafat. So even though we know President Macron nowadays, he is facing serious challenges at home, and there is this diplomatic tension with the Israelis, and we heard or we're reading, reading that the Israelis are about to close the French consulate in occupied Al-Quds Sharif.
Dr. Toumi, another important issue that I want to raise here is that since we're saying governments have not done enough for the Palestinians, volunteers and activists and global celebrities are now speaking out. They're speaking up as well. They're trying to inform the world about the problems in the occupied Gaza Strip. They're trying to highlight the number of children that have died, the number of people that have been massacred. Now, the global Sumud flotilla, we're all aware that it departed Barcelona. Now it's on its way to the occupied Gaza Strip. Yesterday, it was docked in Tunisia, and it was attacked by an Israeli drone. Do you think that these volunteers, Dr. Toumi, will be able to reach the occupied Gaza Strip? I personally believe that looking at the previous incidents of Hanzala and Madlin, I don't think they will be able to. But what's your take on this flotilla?
I mean, I agree. It's a huge challenge for those brave and righteous people in the world who are challenging the arrogance and the state of denial of the Zionists in the world. And this is a strong message that, again, the narrative of the Israelis is no longer valid. I mean, what those righteous and brave people are doing is a clear answer to the ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing policies that have been taking place in Gaza Strip, and not in Gaza, but also in the entire occupied Palestine. So as far as the reaching objective of those brave people and this Sumud flotilla to reach to Gaza, sure, it is a challenge is there, and they we'll see how this would fall in the next days or next weeks. But we are already reading and also hearing that the Israelis are ready to arrest them, and I think the incident of last night on the Tunisian port as Sidi Bouzid, on the northeast coastal city of Tunisia. I mean, it is, if, again, we don't know because the Tunisian authorities, they didn't confirm that, but if that happened, it is an act of aggression on an Arab sovereign state. And by the way, just a quick note on this, Sidi Bouzid and the city did have an incident, actually. It was the assassination of Abu Jihad Khalil al-Wazir, a leader of the PLO in 1988 on that coastal city. It was assassinated by the Mossad.
Dr. Abdunur Toumi, thank you so much for that analysis. It was a pleasure having you on today's episode.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our program. Thanks for watching us. Bye for now.